So I am thrilled to be at Outlier number 4. Number four. Applause for that. I mean, the DVS was founded in 2019. And so the fact that we're 5 and something years in and 4 big global conferences is pretty amazing. We have nearly 200 people joining us live in Chicago and more than 350, I think now, joining us virtually from around the world. So we're very excited to have the community here. Raise your hand if you've been to all 4 Outliers. Oh, thank you. 3 Outliers? 2 Outliers? Your first Outlier? Yay! So I'm very excited to welcome you to your first Outlier or your 4th Outlier, whatever that number looks like. We're excited to be here at Northwestern, and a huge thank you to Steve Francaneri. Where is Steve? Somewhere? Steve, thank you. To Steve and everyone at Northwestern who's made this possible. Being able to put on these kind of events isn't possible without the support of partners and sponsors. And so huge thanks to the Northwestern University community as our gold sponsor and our host institution, as well to Visa, who provided a silver sponsorship that helped us afford things like fruit-infused water, which I never knew would be so controversial. So I like fruit-infused water, the spa water, right, on the catering. The other group we have to thank, and I know thank yous are great for closings, is really to say a huge thank you to our amazing committee. If you are a committee member who helped organize Outlier this year, raise your hand, stand up, just stand up. Where are you? Yeah? Yay! This event would not be possible without the committee members here in person who are busy organizing badges and registration, getting the organization of the whole venue yesterday, and the folks who are online. So thank you to our online volunteers as well. So to kick us off and talk about the world that we're entering into of 3 days of positive disruption, I would like to start with a short story and hopefully the tiniest piece of homework you'll ever be given at a university. Are we on board? Excellent. So if you go backwards to 2018, 2018 is when the last Tapestry conference was hosted. How many of you went to a Tapestry conference? Woo! Matt, I see sitting there, did one of the talks at that Tapestry conference, which was quite excellent. When we look back to 2018 and the Tapestry conference down in Miami, one of the talks was the third wave data visualization talk by Elijah Meeks that really was one of the things that sparked the start of the Data Visualization Society. It was a conversation that he kicked off around the various different waves and changes in the world of primarily digital data visualization and talking about the evolution of our field and our space. In that talk, he showcased wonderful innovations like Microsoft Excel in 1988. Anyone admiring these beautiful chart specifics and designs? I don't want you to miss out because I'm blocking the view. But as you go ahead and look at the evolution of data visualization, we often think about the disruptions of tools. And I did go check the math, and I saw that Excel was released in 1985, not 88. So Elijah, if you're watching. But as we think about the ways in which technology disrupts us, that's often where we go when we think about disruptions in our work, right? Where there's new feature releases or new technologies that enable us to do our work differently. And so these tools are really powerful. They change the ways in which we do data visualization work, and they democratize our field in really meaningful ways. They make the power of data visualization available to people who don't code, for example, which is really powerful. But as we think about the world of data viz in 2018, these were some of the personas identified of the data viz people in 2018. You can read this wonderful article by Susie Liu that talks about the data artists and I think the Excel brute forcers who are forcing Excel to maybe do things it shouldn't or can, the academic dissenters and other folks. And as we think about those different people and personas, thinking about that led me to think more about the people side of how our lives and how our field have been disrupted. And Elijah's closing remarks included a big call to action around building communities, not echo chambers. And the idea of finding ways to bring together people who are working across all those different tech stacks and tools, thinking about how to bring together the tugs with the Are they pugs, the Power BI groups, anyone? The tugs and the pugs and the D3 folks and everyone else to actually have a conversation. So that instead of thinking about all these separate little bubbles, the data artists and the people working in R and the Tableau community, we instead thought about bringing people together into what we now have as the Data Visualization Society, which was founded to bring those different groups together and enable conversations around cross-cutting things like color and different encodings of information and creativity and culture and all of the things that go along with building beautiful charts and graphs. So as we think about positive disruption, I want you to think over the next 3 days about the ways in which disruptions don't have to be big. Disruptions can be small things that slightly change your path, some different color. They can be bigger things that send you off in different directions. And as we think about different disruptions and disruptors, I think when we think about those big and those small things, it helps us to really frame the ways in which our own paths and our data visualization careers have changed and evolved over time. There's a great interactive visualization called Viz Heads. Letitia, are you here right now? There she is. Letitia and the Odd Studio team. It's being updated tomorrow. Did this great interactive focusing on the people who get named in the DVS State of the Industry survey as influencers on people's data visualization practice. And so as we think about people and the ways people influence us, the names that come to mind are often names that we all know, that are on the covers of books like Alberto Cairo, Georgia Lupi, Stephanie Evergreen, John Schwabish, all these different individuals whose names and then their faces in Viz Heads are quite large and that kind of dominate the conversation sometimes about our work. And these are all people who've done amazing things in providing books and blogs and resources and information that influence the way in which we do data visualization. But I would like to jump backwards to 2010 for a moment and think back to when I started my data visualization career. This is an approximation of the office view I had from my first office in DC. And let me just say it was all downhill from here, because you might notice our roof deck looked out over the White House. You'll see that in the background. So it was a great office. I was working there on a analytics, information management, communications project for USAID. And on that team, I was part of an analysis team, but there was also a communications team and a web design team. And in my training in public health, we'd mainly focused on data visualization through the lens of, if you have categorical data, make a bar chart. If you have trend data, make a line chart in a very, very, very prescriptive way. And so a lot of the work that I did was on these reports to Congress and other web content like HIV profiles of different countries' data from various different surveys. And the charts looked predictably like that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I had to go mine, these aren't actually my charts, I had to go mine some of the old reports to Congress to give you a sense of what some of the charts in these reports look like. And Aaron Chavitz, who's here, also might be also able to speak to the fact that some of our charts still look like that in some of the current reports. Because as we think about the evolution of the world of data visualization, you're all here today because you're invested in the ways in which data visualization has evolved over time and building your skills. But that's something that not everyone spends as much time on, and it's quicker to just use the design defaults, in this case, that harken back to Excel 2010, I think, in terms of what those charts look like. And so a lot of charts in these various different reports look like this. But when I think back to my work in that year of 2010, I think a lot about the fact that we had Cindy and Matt. Cindy Pack and Matthew Beck were two graphic designers on our team who took, at the time, our really miserably formatted charts and graphs and reimagined them with visual metaphor, with adding visual interest, with decluttering, at a time when I didn't know the language of data visualization the way that they did. And so as I look back on my data viz career and think about disruption, the people that disrupted my career the most are probably actually these two graphic designers, who are probably not listening today, but who I owe a thank you to, because they showed me the possibilities of what better charts and graphs and visualizations could look like. So as you think about these various different disruptors that we have in our field and in our lives, We oftentimes think about the big names in data visualizations, the ways in which different people have impacted us and shaped our future and what we do and how we practice this work. But I want to challenge you to think about the ways in which perhaps the people who over time shape and disrupt our work the most are actually people who we might not list on a survey of the influencers in data visualization, but they were influential to you. These are often the people doing the quiet work of community building and working inside of teams and organizations and coaching and mentoring that doesn't always get the same spotlight. And so as we think about the people speaking at Outlier today and through the next 2 days, you'll see a number of speakers whose names you might not know, but who I hope at the end of 3 days will be people who will have influenced something about how you think about data visualization. So as we look forward and think about the world of data viz in the next 3 days, data visualization as a field is constantly evolving. We know that. There's big disruptions happening. The common ones we talk about are all the AI enablement, right? Using Copilot and other tools, and how will AI disrupt and change our field? We saw in the State of the Industry survey that those who were using AI back in October and recognized it in their responses primarily used it for data cleaning and data shaping, which is great. I would love to spend less time doing that stuff and more time doing the interesting, creative front-end stuff. But as we think about the world of AI disrupting our work, I think we also should think about the ways in which art and other adjacent spaces are disrupting how we think about data. Has anyone been to the Art Institute here in Chicago? Have you seen this piece? Untitled, A Portrait of Ross in LA. Yes? Someone? Yeah? So this is a big pile of candy. It weighs approximately 175 pounds. That is approximately the weight, a healthy weight, of the person who this is meant to represent. And as you look at this pile of candy, visitors can actually take pieces off that pile of candy as they walk by, which changes the shape of the artwork. But it is both art and it is data visualization. It represents data and information, but in an artistic way. And as we think about a future with more and more AI and other technology involved, I think there'll be even more demand for us to think about taking a step off of our computers and thinking about the ways in which we represent data in physical ways and other ways in the world around us, and address some of the gaps and challenges in data literacy and how we communicate data. So as we think about the next 2 days, we actually do have panels on both AI and on data physicalization, where I hope you'll learn some interesting things about what's happening in those two worlds. As we wrap up, I want to say that part of this evolution of our field and moving in different directions means that we're going to need people with varied and different skills even more. Thinking about the various different skills you might need as a data visualization practitioner is going to change. And so as we look at that distribution of different people, these are all color wheels representing skill sets or portraits of people's skills in data visualization careers from our Careers Portrait series. And I love how different they are, yet how we all are working to do similar things in communicating information more effectively. So as I wrap up, I want to say that part of our goal as DVS is to help create that community of bringing those disparate people together, like through Outlier, by nurturing, celebrating, and advancing the world of data visualization in ways that create that space of community. My one small piece of homework for you, are we all ready? Do you have your pencils out? You're typing things? You're going to forget by the end of the day because there's a lot of good stuff we're going to talk about. Your one small piece of homework is to think about who your Matt or Cindy was in your data visualization journey, and actually send a note. It can be a sentence, maybe on LinkedIn, because that's the only way you can find them, to someone who has positively disrupted your data visualization career and your data visualization work, so that you can recognize the ways in which they influenced you, even if it was 10, 20 years ago. Because even small, seemingly small things, say a book shoved under the bottom row of a set of bricks, can have a huge impact on the overall shape of our careers, on our lives, and on our field. So with that, I'm excited to say I would love to see all of you be part of DVS and continue these conversations in our community as individual members, institutional members, and more importantly, to have a wonderful time over the next 3 days, focusing on these positive disruptions and recognizing both the big and the small things that happen that shape our work and our field. With that, I'm going to hand the mic back over to Emily to go ahead and bring up our first keynote speaker.